think about that. I mean, let me ask you this. How many here has conflict in their marriage at one time? Let's say just last week. Anybody have any conflict that occurs in their marriage? Or with people in general or whatever? Those that didn't raise your hands have the inner conflict.
I haven't been married long enough.
I think, these six different parts. Well, let's start with the first one, the sin in one spouse. We hear about those things like, well, so-and-so cheated on me, or I did this, or I did that. That's hard to deal with sometimes. It's hard to deal with in our spouse, in our own relationship. It's hard to even deal with inside of our own self. We have so much turmoil sometimes in our own conflicts in ourselves that we have to deal with. But those are the things that brings us closer to people we're in love with. When we're able to say, please forgive me for this particular transgression that I did to you. You're humbling yourself. You're saying, please let us start from this moment on to grow deeper in love with each other. The hard part is the one that has this transgression done to. They're the ones that have the total power to say that, I'm going to forgive you. And that's the hard part, because a lot of people don't forgive. Because they can't. Because the hurt is so bad. The hurt is so much. I mean, how many people have those people in their lives that hurt them so bad that it's hard to forgive? And I'm the first, I'll admit that. There's people in my life that's hard for me to forgive. And sometimes that person is me. It's hard for me to forgive myself. And that's another conflict that we have to deal with. These are, one thing I love about this is the number one thing, the transgression conflict, the transgression that occurs between one and another, is maybe the person has so much grace that they'll forgive you and love on you and say you're awesome. But yet Satan uses it inside of us, uses that hurt that we've caused somebody else, and we can't forgive ourselves. And that's part of the conflict that we have to deal with too. We have to learn to forgive ourselves. We may never forget it, but it's a tool for us to grow. So until you're willing to forgive yourself, it's hard to forgive anybody else. Anybody go through that?
Yes.
What do you deal with? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with that pain? How do you deal with that when you have that conflict in yourself or in somebody else? How do you deal with it? Anybody? Yes.
I think that it's this conflict number one. I'll just talk about it. Conflict number one, the sin of one spouse. When you look at all of these things, and we talk about forgiveness, I think that it's interesting because if somebody else does it to us, we can forgive because we don't have to subject ourselves to that person. We have a choice to say, I don't. But when it comes to our spouse, now that changes everything because now our spouse, our marriage is the one person that we can't do that with. We're required to work through things. We're required to help each other grow. So that is the difference, I think. And I wanted to say that forgiving someone, and it doesn't mean you don't feel it, but it does mean that you're not going to use that and keep bringing it up. I've heard of licensed therapists, marriage psychologists say that if you're going to choose to make your spouse pay for what they did, you will never heal that marriage. You cannot, yes, they hurt you. Yes, they were wrong. Yes, what they did was horrible. But once they say they're sorry and you make that decision to work on the marriage, you have to decide that you are not going to make that person pay. And even after you decide that, it takes like a year or 2 years to heal from that. So I think that is the difference, I think, to where our spouse, we're required to see them and somebody else not so much.
said something that stuck in my mind. It's easier sometimes to say I'm sorry than to forgive me. Usually when we say I'm sorry, it's because we got caught. And so, oh, out and open up. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll put back the cookie. Or whatever. But when you say forgive me, it's out, you're just laying yourself out in the open. And I'm saying, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't really deserve your love. But forgive me. And you're just opening yourself up. And when we forgive somebody else, it's hard for us because we also must open ourselves up to that person. Especially if it's your spouse. Because, like Claudine says, we see each other every day. The Bible says the two shall be one. So actually, when you're forgiving your spouse, you're also forgiving that marriage. What's in that marriage. And you want to start anew. Every time you forgive somebody, you're saying, we start anew now. When you forgive someone. Okay, that's a little heavy. We're going to number 2 now. Immaturity or brokenness of one person. When immaturity or brokenness surfaces, face that reality and deal with it equally and mutually instead of an attitude of superiority. Can solve a lot of problems if you are working as a team. Ask my wife, there are times I'm the most immature person on earth. I'll admit it. And I do dumb things. It causes conflict. Some people are laughing. It's okay. It causes conflicts in our relationship because of my own immaturity. We do immature things because we don't think beyond it. I mean, can you think, anybody willing to say, what immature thing have you done? You say, oh, that's pretty immature. Anybody? No one's immature.
We're all immature, whether we want to admit it or not, because when our spouse calls out on something, we're like, no, well, you did it too, or well, you started it. I mean, that's accountability too. It's not taking accountability or responsibility for your illness. That's scary at some point. And then that comes back to saying I'm sorry. I mean, there are people who genuinely are apologetic, not just because they got caught, but because they genuinely feel that. But when it becomes redundant, then it just means nothing.
It kind of flows down to maturity because of when it's always the same thing. Because, when you, like you use the cookie thing. I'm sorry I took the cookie. You keep taking the cookies. You used to have 12 of them. Now there's 2. You've taken them. And if I'm asking sorry for it over and over, if you keep asking you're sorry after every time, it doesn't mean anything. So it's an immaturity. But what I love about it is it's working as a team because we're all immature. I don't care who we are, I don't care how old you are or how young you are, we're all immature. And it takes our spouse to point out that immaturity in a loving and caring way and work as a team. Ultimately, that's what marriage is. I love this phrase, marriage is 2 broken people that comes together to try to heal each other. In Japan, when a vase breaks, or in the Orient, when the vase breaks, they take gold and try to repair it in those cracks. Something precious. So when a marriage has something broken, you take those cracks and you fill something with something precious. And those that have a relationship with Christ, it's the blood of Christ filling those cracks, repairing that relationship. So even through immaturity, God's there with us. God wants to love us. God wants to love on you. God wants to love on your relationship. Hurt feelings that are not anyone's fault. Who has hurt feelings that, that's no one's fault. Marriage is a place where old hurts inevitably get stepped on. But old hurts can heal as you respond differently to your spouse than when they were responded to in their past. Though you can't fix your spouse, you can become a healing agent with empathy, understanding, non-defensiveness, and care. We've all had relationships before our present one. Can you think of things that happened in past relationships that are coming up in this one? Or that you deal with? Well, let me put this up. If you were dating somebody and they cheated on you one way or another, you know, they're hiding little notes, or they have these secret phone calls. Now you're in your present relationship, and your spouse gets this text, and they look at it. You ask, well, who was it? Oh, no, just a friend. Your mind starts going back to when you were hurt before of somebody cheating. Oh, you're cheating on me. Or I know, Paul and I know of a relationship where the spouse cheated, and now they're disconnected because and so everything's like, well, who are you talking to? Where'd you go? What are you doing? Because that hasn't been dealt with. We all have those things. When we get in a relationship, we love that person, but then we start seeing these little things that have to be dealt with. And it comes back to maturity. It takes a mature spouse to see those things, and then talking with them like, what is it? You know that that's nothing. So what are you feeling? And it's getting that and addressing it. And telling them, I'm here for you. Baby, I love you. Maybe if you left me, half my stuff's gone. So, you know, you're with me. You know. But the reality is that, you know, you're part of me. And if you hurt, I hurt. Tell me what's going on. And that's part of the maturity. That's part of conflict. Conflicts happen to everybody. And the hard part is like, when we have conflict, we put it on one big umbrella. Oh, this is conflict. What they're doing is breaking it down. Each conflict is, sometimes conflicts are different, and that's the hard part, especially in marriage, because as humans, we remember different things. Oh, this happened, A plus B plus C equals D. So, okay, so if he's doing this, then this is what's going to happen. And all reality is, it's not the same, and we have to be able to communicate with each other. That's the beauty of fusion. We communicate. We're encouraging communication. And that's the hard part, too. We want to have our own separate lives, but then we come together, have dinner, or whatever, or somebody plots on it. Or like the video at the beginning. He's out with the kids, she's cleaning the house, and then there's a conflict there. You know, we have to decipher this and find these conflicts and these desires. Number 5, desires of one person versus the needs of the relationship. Is that pretty self-explanatory? Who's going to me? 4? See, my selfish desires, I wanted to go to 5. We're going back to 4. Thank you. Conflicting desires. You know, I want to stay home, like the video. No, we need to do stuff at work, at the house. We need to clean up. You know, but I'm tired. I want to go out. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to take the money that we just got from taxes and use it on this. No, I think we need to hang on to it. Conflicting desires. What causes it? What's the one thing you think causes it?
Different personality.
Different personality, pride and self-esteem. How about lack of communication? Oh, man, but no, it's, you know, different things. We have the desires, we have the conflicting desires, and we should share those desires. You know, anybody dealing with that right now or has something going on that, you know, just conflicting desires, we should do this, we should do that. Yeah, well, my hand's up too, we go through it too. You know, anybody want to share? How are you guys resolving those? Let me ask you this. How are you resolving those conflicting desires? What are you doing? Krista?
We have to sit down and talk about it and decide what, if some things are like needs, then we can do that first. Then we have to like as a spouse or as a husband, so it has to get done for this person. And some things we want to do. Like if I want to go, you know, to the mall, but he can fix something in the backyard, like
to change. I think there's different conflicting desires. So Pastor Allen and I are in a place in our life where we're pretty much really flexible to do things on an everyday basis, but we're more destiny-oriented, future vision. So, but however, we always protect the marriage. We always do what's best for the marriage and the family. So it all circles around that. Whatever our desires are for any big thing that we want to do, it has to be healthy for our marriage. If anything's going to come in conflict with that, then it's off the table. It doesn't matter if he wants it, it doesn't matter if I want it, it doesn't matter how good it sounds, if we see that it's going to hurt our family in the long run.
No, it's true. I think that the key point is, does it help the marriage?
Well, we had just a little one, where Jerry lives, where I'm moving. They have a laundry room. There's not a built-in a laundry area. And the other day I suggested, we could put in a stackable unit here, you know. And she says, why? I said, well, it's handy. And I don't like walking out to the laundry room. And she says, well, I don't mind it. I enjoy it. I said, well, if you want to do the wash, that's fine with me. She said, I have no problem with that. So, you know.
Yeah, you compromise, you communicate it, you know, I don't want to see I want people seeing my troubles, you know. And she goes, hey, I'm fine, I'll do it. You know, now she's doing the one, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, you guys.
I come out win-win on
Yeah, I know, you know, I didn't spend any money. Yeah, I know.
That's good, right?
But did you get though that she likes doing it, therapeutic
Yeah.
kind of thing? I gotta get away from Frank for a little while. You know? Why don't you take all days one? You know, yeah. Very good. There.
For myself, it's I'm not even gonna lie, like you do this whole thing, right? The submissive, honoring. I'm not even gonna lie. We've been married a year, and just recently I would say like I'm really trying all this family learning and fusion and everything. But Wayne and I we've been butting heads a lot with some issues, and I'm a very strong-willed person, and so lately he's just been like, hey, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. And that was such a hard thing for me to take, because I'm like, wait, we're not agreeing to disagree, homie. Like we're gonna now. There was no agreeing to disagree. But now, he keeps telling us, like, babe, then we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. And I'm like, okay, but I keep being reminded that I still have to be submissive, and I have to make sure that I'm honoring the leadership role that my husband is taking on right now, and give him the opportunity to lead. And even though I may not agree or he doesn't agree, I still have to obey the lead, and that is really hard for me, because I'm just like, I feel like what I feel is right, and I need to let that go. And so we're going through that. So to hear this right now, I'm like, I can't wait to put it on the fridge. You know, but right now it's like, I'm really trying to just submerge myself and be like, okay, Lord, help me to see it how he sees it then, so that we can be one together on the decisions that we have to make. But at least I'm taking baby steps.
I think what Eric said, it's so true in the sense that on one hand it's hard to be quote unquote submissive is it has taken on such a bad name, bad definition. Actually, in the Bible, when it's talking about submissive, what you're saying is like, I trust you that you are listening to God's voice, that you're listening to God. So as long as you're listening to God and what he's saying, I'll follow you. Because also it's like it's a block for the person. In other words, you're saying you're going to make a way for me so it's easier for me. It's like a smith. It's like a sail. You're a sail. You're going to catch the wind, but the ship's going to move. You're going to guide me into the right place. It's like it's very freeing when you get to that point, it's just hard because we're humans to let it go because of, again, past relationships. We've had, we tried to submit to other people, matter male or female, and they messed us up. They jacked us big time, just how they treated us. They used us and everything else. And, you know, and that's why talking about it and agreeing to disagree, but also as a man, listening to what the woman says, because I hate to break it to you guys, a lot of times they're a lot smarter than us.
Amen.
And they see things differently than us.
That's what I'm saying. Current situation.
But the reality is, though, is that God's showing something. If let's say there's something going on in the relationship, there's a block, and you, as a man, you see it one way, and your partner sees it another way. It doesn't mean it's wrong. As a human, as a Christian, as people that are trying to work together, the object is trying to understand what they see on their end, and you see what they see on their end. It's like a diamond. If you take a diamond and I say one word, someone say the cut, clarity, cost, how big it is. Guys, go back to the cost, the color. None of them are wrong, but if you put them all together, you see that diamond better. It's the same thing with obstacles in our lives. When God put the man above us, in authority, it doesn't mean to ignore the woman. In fact, you, as a man, you rely on the woman's viewpoint to see a situation. What do you see? And what do you see? Theoretically, man sees things black and white. This is how it is. Woman sees in color and says, well, I see all the gray areas. I see the niches. And if you combine the two, you understand the problem better. And then you can make a more mature direction and find it. It's the same thing with conflict. When you see the conflict, you know, like we're having this conflict, but for the relationship, it's not you're better than me. How do you see this conflict? Well, I see it this way. Well, I see it this way. So the other person understands. You can hit the conflict head on, tear it apart, deal with it, and the conflict's gone, and you're both now back in the same direction. Conflicts aren't always bad. It causes us in a relationship to see the conflict, deal with it, and then put us back on the same direction. If you don't deal with conflicts, eventually it's like a little wedge. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Next you know, it's so far, you guys are so far away that you don't have to worry about conflict because you're no longer in each other's lives. Go ahead.
I think that resolving conflict in life is so important. This lesson that we're doing today, Brother Stan, is so powerful. I don't know if people realize most fights, most disagreements, most divorces are because people don't know how to resolve conflict. And if you can learn to resolve conflict and have a conversation about something you disagree and just say it the right way and bring it across, your marriage is going to be so much better. I love how this lesson just puts it all down for us so that we're able to understand it. It's incredible, like hurt feelings, that are no one's fault. Sometimes we have conflict, it's not our spouse's fault, it's our own issues, our own insecurities, our own wanting to control the individual. So there's conflict and it has nothing to do with the other, no one's fault really, it's what God wants to do in your life. So this is a beautiful lesson, and Brother Stan, you're doing a great job explaining it. Thank you.
Oh, for her, that's right.
Okay, dealing with conflict. Jerry and I are politically opposites. So we have some interesting conversations. But we are able to deal with it that, we are different people. We have different feelings about things. And that's why we have, our different views on political things. There are some things we do agree on both, but like I told her, I'll cancel her vote out, I don't mind.
And politics is always fun. In any case, it's fun. Known versus the unknown. I think this is, I call it the mirror effect. When you're with somebody long enough, all the cute stuff is no longer cute. Oh, I love how they laugh. Oh, yes, we just leave her. She can sleep on my chest. Now it's like, get on your own side of the bed. Ah, you're hot, you're cold. You know, you're taking the cover. Am I? If your laughter is, really. We went through the whole cover thing, just an example. My wife goes, you cocoon. I go, what do you mean? She goes, you're in a sleeping bag. I go, yeah, it's so comfy. And so we saw that. She asked for covers. I have mine. We share the same bed.
Yeah.
But she could like plop out of bed and cool off. She's always hot. I'm like, so I'm like, oh. And then we have animals that kind of lay all around me because I'm like a constant eater, so I can't move. So it's rough at 3 in the morning when you have to go to the bathroom. But anyways, but it's this known and unknown. This is where conflict number 6, is a hard one. Because you're saying to yourself, what do you see in me that are bad? What should I change? And to say it in love, and when somebody gives you the green light to do that, that's hard too, because you're just, oh, wow, here's the list. Should we do it alphabetical or chronological? It's up to you. So, and we have that, but then we have to do it in love. We have to do it for the reason that I love you so much that I want you to be awesome. And there are these little things. And then them saying, cool, I want you to be awesome too. I want you to be more of a woman, more of a man, than more of what God wants you to be. That He showed me this. And then you work on it together. And you encourage him. I appreciate when you do this, or, my wife's a great decorator. She's painting, which means I have to move furniture. But anyways, she does such an awesome job with the colors. And she goes, what do you think? And I have to say, it looks awesome, looks great. She puts pictures and everything else. I go, do you really want that picture of me? Part of me said, I look fat. And I realized, oh yeah, no kidding. So, but it's talking, it's communicating. And it goes back to what we said at the beginning. Communicating with one another is the key to dealing with conflict. And I would say, I would ask her, hey, what do you see in your spouse? But they're next to you, and you may not make it to the parking lot. So will keep to yourself. But just remember how you present it. When you get to this point, presenting it and saying, I love you so much that I see this. I love you so much that you're better than this or this. And doing it out of love, and then doing it out of sharing it and respect. That's the key for number 6. We do have one more video. Go ahead and start it, and then we'll come back. Did you guys get that? A lot of that stuff? A lot of that's hard. Hard, I mean, yeah. I think one of the keys that it talks about in our thing is that, is the humility that, of dealing with the conflict. And also deciding on, am I like, do I love, as they put the boundaries, boundaries, maybe what? Boundary lover and boundary resistant. No one, I don't want you to put me in a box. I'm free like the wind. That kind of thing. You're preventing me to be me. You knew who I was when we first got together. This is how I am. And the reality is we change. Claudina said at the beginning, as time grows, as you both grow as a people, you start to change. You start to see things different. I mean, would it be scary if like you saw things as you were like a teenager? I mean, some of the stuff, and, yeah, I'm gonna stay out all night and then go to work and then 30 minutes after that. Are you kidding? You remember like when you were little, nap was a bad thing? Nap was kind of cool. It changes, as time changes, we see things differently. So it's part of the maturity.
I think that marriage demands boundaries. As a man, you were, before you got married, you were man and woman. Then you get married and you're husband and wife. Now you both are, so to speak, kneeling before God, but also the marriage. So when you get married, your marriage demands boundaries from both of you. And that's the thing. We do change, but there are things that we are going to have to lay down because of marriage. There are things that I'm sure Pastor Allen would like to do, that he knows that there's boundaries on right now. Like spending money on fishing or other different things, or me with, whatever. But if the finances aren't there, it's hurting the marriage, and that doesn't come overnight. When you first get married in the initial years, it takes work to get to that because nobody's taught us this information. Nobody's really told us, oh, guess what? You think you're going to get married, you're going to continue to live your life like you were. No, you're not. You are now married. So you're no longer your husband. A husband is a title, kind of like when you become a police officer, or your whatever title you have. Well, the husband title and wife has responsibilities that come with it, and marriage demands boundaries to protect it for both parties.
I look at how marriages are, it kind of reminds me a lot like a train. At first, it starts slow, and I guess it has to get that traction. But once it gets going, the train is actually one of the vehicles that's on the planet that's hardest thing to stop once it gets going. Once it's moving down the track, there's not a lot of Supermans come by, is it? It's not going to stop right away. In fact, a train doesn't stop immediately. It takes a while once it's full steam. But as strong and as powerful a train is when it's moving, what does it need? A track. That's when it runs the best. That's when it runs the fastest. That's when when it's on that track, nothing's going to stop it. Same thing with a marriage and having boundaries. It starts slow and it gets going. And you want it to really flourish and just go excitingly down the track and influencing other people. That's the beauty with Fusion. That's our main goal, is to have some awesome marriages coming out of here. Influencing our kids, have awesome marriages under themselves. And if God should tarry, them having grandkids, having awesome marriages. So we could just, get marriages back the way it's supposed to be, as the basis of everything in this society. But the minute we get off the track, the minute we get past those boundaries, we go crashing into things, and then next thing it falls apart, getting off the track. And once the train is off the track, it is very hard to get back on the track. Once a marriage gets out of the boundaries, it's very hard to get back in those boundaries. So I want to get those boundaries down. And the boundaries, part of the boundaries is humility. Having that humility to say, I'm flawed. Show me my flaws. And I could probably name a bunch of them in my own life. But I have a beautiful, wonderful wife who helped me name the other ones I miss. But it's the same thing. I have that confidence. And it's getting down there. What is humility? What is humility to you? Let me ask you that question. It's in our paper. What is humility? Who can define humility? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious what you guys think. Humble? Humble's good. What else?
Humility is it's a vast word, and in it we find that we need to learn how to listen to our spouses, to be able to understand where they're coming from, because sometimes our ego, our bad experiences, or past our relationships get in the way if we don't listen. You know, we listen and like he says, don't jump to conclusion, learn to, rather than rebut what the person is saying, just, you know, hear and analyze it before you respond, or if you don't, you know, you might not to respond, you know, have the need to respond. So, you know, listening is pretty humbling.
God gave, you've heard some of this. And God gave me only one mouth in 2 years, so listen twice as much. The key to listening or communicating is that, and Vicar kind of said it, is that reiterating what they said. If somebody says something to you to show that you're listening, rephrase that statement back to them. And when you do that to somebody, there's a little joy that appears, like, hey, this person's actually listening to me. Isn't that how you came to your mate part right now? The person you're dating with, the person you're married to, is like, this person gets me. This person, understands me. This person listens to me. Why is that all of a sudden changed now that we're married and been together so many years? Well, you're always saying the same thing. Well, you're not doing it, are you? Kind of thing.
Yesterday, Bill came outside and said to me, "What have you got on your mind that's bothering you?" And I looked at him and I said, "How do you know something was getting me in trouble?" He says, "Well, been a couple of years, I kind of know you a little bit now." And he sat there and listened to me tell him what I was thinking. And it did help resolve it for me. So, even though we've only got a start on this together, it's working.
You guys are going to hang out for a little longer than cool. But I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, I'm not going to say male or female. It's like one person just wants to be heard. Doesn't want to be fixed. Just wants to know that you're listening. The other person should be there to listen. It's like a net. Listening is like a net, that you're catching the person. If you're not listening, that person's falling all the way down to the ground without you. You have to be that net as the listening person. And then it goes back the other way. Hate to break to you, ladies, but we like to be listened to too. Guys want to be heard. But sometimes the way we communicate, okay, here we go. The way we communicate is not perfect.
Right.
But bear with us. When we do say something, it's kind of important to us.
One thing we could learn from Adam and Eve, as we heard last week, you know, if Adam, I try to analyze this it's been in my head. If Adam had just questioned Eve, I mean, it could, this is my human, part of it, okay?
Speak it, brother. Tell us how it is.
It was God's plan, okay? We can't turn around what God had in mind. But humanly speaking, if he had just questioned, hey, wait a minute, where do you get this fruit from? It would have saved us a lot of headaches, and a lot of pain. And the woman herself would have saved a lot of pain for, especially birth, But, sometimes we get too comfortable with our partners, whether it's a he or a her, and we don't question certain things, and then we pay the consequences. So there's no how would I say it? There shouldn't be any conflict of questioning something that comes, hey, where'd that come from? Because it'll save you time and money later on.
I think when it comes to conflict and we question something, and I know I'll be the first to admit, when I get questioned, I say, what? Don't you think I'm sure enough to have this in? Don't you think I thought about this? And then, my wife said, no. You're right. And,
I think it's true. Have Adam question, and marriage is a mystery. That's why marriage is so beautiful. Because on the one hand, the man is to lead, and he's the head of the household. On the other hand, we're supposed to help him. We're the helpmate. So you're right. You know, she was there to help him, but having question as a leader. So together as one, communicating, you know, they weren't communicating. So that's the beauty of it. And I think that God, when he designed marriage, he knew that keeping us talking, communicating, examining things together as husband and wife, you know, I think that was the goal for marriage. Because on the one hand, he is a leader. However, he made him a leader, but he said, I'm going to give you a helpmate suitable to you. So yes, you're the leader, but we help you. How do we help you? You know, there's many stories in the Bible about a woman's role and responsibility. You know, we're supposed to build our home. We're supposed to, you know, bless our husbands. There are some, you know, it's not a theology for Christianity, but I was listening to somebody teaching in the Jewish religion where the man does not want his wife to speak ill of him. It is a dangerous thing to have your wife Christian. So they treat their wives well, so the wife blesses them because they realize that their success depends on what comes out of the woman's mouth. So it's a circle. Bless your wife. Love your wife so she can bless you in return. You know, lead. You know, advise and lead and question. So yes, brother, you were right about it.
So if you're not getting blessed, somebody's not blessing the other person. Okay? Some of you didn't laugh. But anyways, and grace, you know, what is grace? Basically, unmerited favor. You don't deserve it. But I'm showing you grace. You know, you don't deserve to be the leader in my eyes, but because you're the man and God says so, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray God speaks to you. I'm going to love you like no one else. I'm going to, whenever somebody talks about their relationship, oh, my man is this. And in turn, men, when you're at work or wherever and somebody's talking about this girl, that girl, oh, did you see that girl walk by us? No, I don't have to. I have the hottest girl at home waiting for me. You know, I remember one time, you know, you're walking down the beach and people are oogling other girls. I'm sorry, the only girl I oogle is my wife. I mean, she's the hottest. Everybody else. I love you all here. I'm sorry, my wife's the hottest. I got the hottest. And I will proclaim it to. And husbands, you better say the same about your wives. If you don't want them to go, look for somebody else. And wives, say the same thing to your husbands. If you don't want them to go anywhere else, show them grace. Show them how much they affect you, how much they love, how much you love them, why you love them. Why would humility and grace be the key to dealing with your spouse's sin? We talked about that earlier. You know, those hidden sins, the sins that they've dealt with. And for that matter, any other conflict. How would humility and grace help in these situations? Or will it help?
No, grace does, you know.
Grace does help.
Yeah.
It's like the definition, you know.
I think grace is listening to what they have to say and validating it, you know. And like I said, Jerry's one side, I'm the other, policy-wise, politically, you know. And I don't condemn her for it. I just disagree with her about it. You know, so that's, and the same with her. She doesn't condemn me. She just knows we think differently about things. So I think that's having grace for each other in reality.
I think too, it's letting them be who God wants them to be. You know, when God created us all differently.
And that's what makes us Americans. You know, we can agree to disagree. We can agree to see things different, even politically. what we want and believe what we want, even if the other person thinks we're wrong or we think they're wrong, and agreeing to this, but it's gotta be hard in the household, so it's an interesting, season.
That's it. You know, deal with conflict. Don't hide it underneath the rug. The problem is you start hiding stuff under the rug.
Well, Grace boils down to me thinking it's all right for her to be wrong, and
Yeah, it's hard to be wrong. But don't hide it. You've got to deal with these conflicts, okay? Really quick, we have a couple things that we need